And welcome back to the garage. It's Mike Pecoraro, garage guy, coming to you here. Hot off the heels of my first episode following yesterday's tough loss to the Toronto Raptors. What I wanted to do is I wanted to jump right back into it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a game-by-game recap of what's going on, kind of give you in-game analysis of what the Mavericks are doing and what their opponents doing. See what the Mavericks are doing right, in my opinion, what they should be doing differently. But I'm going to back up my opinion by facts, because I'm not just going to give you my opinion just to blow smoke out of my ass, because I'm not a big fan of that. So I want to give you some in-depth analysis and kind of explain why I see it that way, because that's just how I roll. But today I really wanted to do something a little bit different. Now, a lot of you know me. Some of you don't know me that well. But if you know anything about me, you know damn right that I've been a Mavericks fan as long as you know me. But it hasn't always been that way. So I want to kind of get into why I became a Mavs fan, and when I became a Mavs fan. And today, as you noticed yesterday watching the video, I was drinking a beer. So I'm going to do that from now on. So when I do these video blogs or podcasts, whatever you want to call it, I'm be drinking a beer. And today I'm going to be drinking a Tall Boy in honor of the tall baller from the G. And if you don't know, now you know. That's Dirk. So let's get into it. Now, I wasn't always a Mavs fan. Growing up, when I first started getting into basketball, it was in the mid-90s. And of course, at that time, the Bulls were reigning supreme. So I was a Bulls fan and I was an MJ fan. And I really got into basketball because, if you knew me growing up, I never had cable. All I had was the bunny ears. So I got NBC. So I would always watch NBA on NBC. Everybody remembers that growing up, right? So what I would do is at halftime, watching whatever game, I'd go outside to the front yard and I would reenact what I saw. And at the time, you watched a lot of Bulls games because they were good. You watched the Bulls, you watched the Jazz, Supersonics were on, the Knicks at the time were okay, Lakers, you know, those major market teams that were good at the time. Needless to say, the Mavericks were never on TV. Reason being is they were shitty. They sucked in the 90s. So I never got to watch them on national broadcast. So at the time that I became a fan, I didn't know much about them. But my dad realized that I was growing more and more interested in basketball, so he wanted to take me to my first NBA game. And the nearest NBA team to where we live in Abilene is the Dallas Mavericks. So he got us tickets to go. We went to a game. It was around Christmas time, 1997. At the time, I was 8 years old. Right now, I'm 30. So you do the math. 22 years I've been a Mavs fan. But at the time, they were playing the Charlotte Hornets. It was 1997, and that was the year before Dirk was drafted. So I'm loyal. But I went to the game with my dad, and and at the time, the Mavericks, like I said, were terrible. So at the time, our tickets probably cost $2 each, because I swear we were bumping our head on the back of the arena. Our parking probably cost more than our tickets did. But I was in the building. At the time, I wasn't a Mavs fan, but as soon as the starting lineups went, the game started going, I fell in love. I fell in love with the atmosphere. I fell in love with the culture. Even though at the time they weren't a winning team, I was 8 years old, so I didn't know any better. So I fell in love at that moment. And I remember specific things about that game. For instance, they were playing the Charlotte Hornets, and at the time, the Charlotte Hornets had Glenn Rice. And I had a PlayStation at the time, and I had an NBA game, and it was literally called NBA, where you could only play with the starting five. You couldn't do substitutions, no role players, bench players, nothing like that. Starting five. And Glenn Rice was on the Hornets, and the dude could not miss threes. He was on fire. And I remember that going into the game, I was really excited to watch him specifically. But being a kid and at a home team, a home game for the Mavericks, you start feeding off the energy of the crowd. And that was a game, and back then the Mavericks weren't in very many games, but that was a game in which they were in the game. The game actually went down to the buzzer. Mavericks were down by 2. They called a timeout, and I remember this clear as day. 22 years later, they called a timeout, and the smart play would be probably at the time in the 90s, play for the 2, go to overtime. But the Mavericks, being the bottom feeder that they were at the time, they went for the win. They shot a 3 at the buzzer. I don't remember who shot the shot, but no good. Mavericks lost by 2. And the whole ride home, the 3-hour drive, because my dad and I, we would drive to Dallas just to watch a game, sit for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and drive 3 hours back home. The whole way home, I couldn't stop talking about specific things about the game and the Mavericks this, Mavericks that, and my dad was thrilled. At the time, my dad didn't have a whole lot of interest in sports, but he saw that I had that interest and he wanted to share it with me, which is really cool. So appreciate that, Pops. But I fell in love with the Mavs. And like I said, the following year, the Mavericks made the draft day trade to get Dirk. A couple of years later, they started to turn things around, won that first round series against the Jazz when no one thought they were going to win with Steve Nash. And I've been a Mavs fan ever since. And it's really cool that I can trace my fandom all the way back to then and that one particular night, that one particular moment. So I want to know, all my fans out there that have a squad that they follow, what's your particular moment that you can recall when you became a fan of that team? Personally, I think it's really cool that I could trace it back to that moment. I know a lot of people out there probably have teams that they supported their whole life just because it was genetically passed down to them. You know, dad followed the team, uncle, cousins followed the team, so you just kind of follow the team too. That wasn't the case for me. Mavericks were a trash team. They were no good. Everybody liked the Bulls. I was one of them. But as soon as I watched the Mavs game, I went to the stadium. I fell in love with the Mavs, and that was my team ever since then. And it was really cool that right after I went to that game, you know, that season they were terrible. Next couple of years they were terrible. But that next season they got Dirk. So I got to follow Dirk his entire career. And I'm extremely excited now because my daughter's only 2. She's a youngster. But what Dirk was for me is what I'm hoping Luka is for my daughter, where she can grow up and watch one guy be extremely loyal and grow with the team, grow with the city, and build a championship culture. So I'm extremely excited. But I just wanted to let you guys know where my fandom really came from, why I became a Mavs fan. And I want to hear, you know, where your fandom came from, because I want to see y'all's enthusiasm and your passion for your squad too, because I like hearing, I talk trash from time to time about other people's teams, but I'm never going to diss you for liking the team that you like unless you're a bandwagon fan, and I'm not with that. So if you're a bandwagoner, just get the hell on, step on. But let me know what your squad is. I'm curious to hear. But I'll be getting back with you Thursday. Mavs play the Spurs in Dallas on Thursday, day after Christmas. But until then, I hope everybody enjoys the holidays. Hope you appreciate my fandom for the Mavs, and I'll get at y'all later. Thanks, guys.